And we're live.
What's up,
Hello.
Maddie?
Hey, well, welcome to a special edition of Hex Therapy Live. I'm your host, Maddie ALLin. We are in the 94th week of this show that's normally once a week. And this week it's twice in 1 week because you and I met when there was a Pulse Chain meetup in Las Vegas. And I got really excited about being able to share your story here on my channel.
That's awesome, man. That's
So
awesome.
thanks for
Yeah.
being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Can you go ahead and want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Jimmy the Hex, everyone knows me on social media as that. Yeah, man, I'm here blessed, in cryptocurrency. Spent a lot of time incarcerated behind bars in prison for stupid decisions that I made as a kid growing all the way up into my late 30s. And yeah, man. I'm here seeking advice, asking help, trying to educate myself in cryptocurrency. And I got onto Twitter. Actually, the first people I reached out to was Black Hexakin and Abit Hex from KSB.TV, and they kind of just I said, hey, I really want to be involved in this. I want to do something. I see that this is the future, and it's a positive future instead of like a negative future that I'm always putting in my mind. I'm just slowly learning new things. Yeah, I got involved with KSB.TV and then got onto Twitter and downloaded some business cards and just started, spreading awareness and started learning myself. It was like, that's the easiest way to learn for me, is to like go out and do it, and then hands on. And then as I'm being selfish in the same way as I'm learning. And then, yeah, bro, I just stayed focused, steadily. I work an hourly job, so I don't have a bunch of money to put in, but every little bit I do have extra. I just put in the Hex, and then the Hex meetup came, the PulseCon, and I talked to my parole officer, and she didn't think it was a good idea, and I showed her what I was doing with Twitter and TikTok and YouTube, and with Giving Alpha, Chris from Giving Alpha, and she's like, all right, I can see you're doing something positive. And so she allowed me to go, man, and that's where I had the pleasure of meeting you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so I already told you this, but for the audience, my background is as a mental health therapist. And before that, as a neuroscientist. And I specialized in working with people who were court ordered to do substance abuse treatment in particular, and provided both the mental health and the substance abuse treatments at the clinic where I was living for 7 years. And that really taught me a lot about how people can change their behavior, because of course, changing your behavior when it comes to addictive substances is considered one of the hardest behavior changes that somebody can make. And so I was like way overqualified for my job, but I still was willing to work, at a job that, didn't pay very much money, and where I was working every hour that the clinic was open because I was so enthusiastic about teaching group and individual therapy, and really, trying to give people the tools that they need in order to be successful, to maintain sobriety over longer periods of time than normal. Because about, the success rate of people who are coming out of prison and trying to quit drugs, and trying to not go back to prison is very low compared to what I think it should be. And so that created the perfect challenge for me. And then by saving up my money and investing in Hex, I was able to turn a small investment into enough to be able to retire for for the foreseeable future. And that's when I started making content about crypto and mental health. And so I'm going to play the intro for my show, where the founder of Hex is giving some memorable quotes about what he thinks about the combination of crypto and mental health. And then you and I can get into our discussion.
Cool, man.
Let me find it here. Okay.
It's from Maddie ALLin of HexTherapy.live. I like Maddie. Maddie tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research, big videos on sudden wealth syndrome. There's nothing that a human being can do better than try and heal his fellow man. Maddie ALLin's got that covered. Does emotional, feel-good, mind management, emotion stuff like as his gig because he's a therapist. That's what he does for a living. Like he helps heal people.
So I'm not a therapist anymore in the sense that it's actually illegal to give therapy advice on YouTube because it goes to lots of different states where the licensing requirements are different. But that doesn't mean that I can't practice my free speech and still make educational and entertainment content that, includes information that people might find helpful with their self-help journey. And so this is not therapy advice. I'm not your therapist. If you're suicidal, you need to call the suicide hotline for the people at home. And but other than that, I really enjoy scaling everything, to be able to reach a much larger audience than just in one town. And it looks like Jimmy, his signal must have dropped off because I know he's sharing Wi-Fi with a bunch of different people right now. But I'll be happy to see if he's able to get back on here shortly. And there we go. You're back.
Sorry about that, man. Yeah,
that's okay.
Connection problems.
And just another note to the people at home, just to set up our conversation better, is like I'm going to be doing a stream later tonight that'll talk about all of the technical things that are happening with the Ethereum forks. But this is dedicated to, talking about your recovery and how that relates to being in a crypto that's long-term minded. So I think it'd be cool if you maybe wanted to see how much you want to volunteer about, like, giving kind of a broad strokes view of what your background was, where, what brought you to a point where you knew you had a problem with using substances.
Right. Absolutely. So I think it really stems from, my obviously childhood, right? I didn't have the 100 best upbringing, but then again, a lot of people don't that are very successful. It's really what you do with what you have. But around the age of 12, I started smoking pot and drinking and stuff like that. And then I had an older sister that was, into the same type of thing. So I kind of mentored towards that, right? And then coming from Norfolk, Virginia, a bigger city, that was my surroundings, was the drug scene, alcohol, partying, of course, all that stuff. So the people that I looked up to wasn't, of course, my mom and my dad, the people I should have looked up to. It was more like the friends and the people that I was hanging out with, I used as my mentors. Well, majority of those guys were, dope dealers or drug addicts themselves, and I wanted to be like them, right? So that was instilled in my brain. And I didn't realize this till like a year ago, that I was like, wow, this is what stemmed from all this, that was my upbringing that I put upon myself. And this is now why I have my habits. So, I did that for several years. I was taking acid when I was, 13 years old. I OD'd on that. My mom freaked out when she found out. She had to come to the hospital. I was in the hospital. I died like 3 separate times. I didn't stop there though. I just went into like ecstasy and mushrooms, and then didn't really get in too much trouble about it. I was just, partying and stuff. And then went from there to hard drugs, cocaine, crack. Didn't really mess with heroin at that point in my life, but that was what was going on the East Coast, was a heroin epidemic, crack epidemic, and And so one thing led to another. I started smoking crack, got addicted to crack, started doing things that were not okay, breaking the law, you know, stealing, just being not myself, not who I was. And got wrapped up with the wrong people. My mom had wanted me to move to Montana to live with my father because it was more in the country, you know, that I wouldn't get in as much trouble and stuff like that. So I did that. And I took a city mentality into a little town of like 5,000 people. And it was all bad. It just got like way worse, you know, because I had a different kind of attitude, you know, the clothes I was wearing, my accent, people didn't understand it. So I get in fights. And then I was introduced to meth. And, you know, then it just escalated from there, you know. Once I got addicted to meth, it was, I got my first charge, criminal manufacturing dangerous, which was growing marijuana. And I did 5 years probation, but couldn't obviously complete the probation because of drugs. And so I reoffended and on another felony.
You cut off there when you said you reoffended on another felony. If we're having trouble getting your signal, you might turn off your video if you see a way to do that. There we go. If it gets choppy again or whatever, if you turn off your video, I think the signal the audio will get through better. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. It's going again right now. I was thinking about moving spots in the house.
Okay. Yeah, we can you know, work with what we've got, and if you turn off your
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, if we drop too many more times, then you can turn off your video, and you can just have audio only, and that might fix things. Are you there?
Hopefully
Testing. I can hear you.
You can hear me all right?
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, so I came outside. The Wi-Fi router's right here by the sliding glass door.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I just basically after the meth and my first felony, I went to prison for the first time and did 3 years. Got out through a boot camp, Montana Treasure State Correctional Training Center. And I did really good for about 8 months, but I wasn't ready to quit. You know, I wasn't ready to stop. And I had a kid during my imprisonment. I got what I thought was going to be my wife, you know, but my own stupidity changed all that. And I had a son, Caden. He's like 16 years old now. And of course I have no contact with him because of my drug addiction, it makes sense, you know. I was bitter at it at first, but so I did 3 years my first time and got out, reoffended about 8 months later, and that's when Courtney left me and on a DUI offense. Went back.
And how long ago are we from this point?
So that is like 2008.
Okay.
And then went back for another 2.5 years on a DUI offense because violated my parole. And then went to a therapeutic community treatment center. And it took me about 9 months to finish the program. And then it was like a whole 2.5 years through the whole thing, and then 6 months county jail. And I got out. did really good for about I joined the union, local 732, as an iron worker, and went through the apprenticeship, did really good through there. But I still left that back door open. You know, I wasn't on parole anymore at that time. I had
and how long were you off papers total?
For about 2 years
since your first offense.
Only
you were on probation for 5 years, kind of starting off, right?
Yeah. So since 2005, I've only been off parole or probation for about 2 years, and the entire time.
And during that time, you were working?
Yeah, working or, you know, hustling in my mind, dealing drugs, or, you know, just whatever I could to stay afloat. I was always going back to the usage. Like I couldn't ever shake it, you know. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy.
Did you have sobriety during those 2 years at all?
I did for about the first year, and then once the line of work I had was you know, basically going after the job, you go close the bars down, you know, because we would travel. Being an iron worker, you would travel, and yeah, man, it was what we did. It's and the mentality is, you know, tough iron workers that go out and drink. It was
it's a culture.
It's a culture, man. It's a mentality.
Yeah.
And so I went through the union, and then again I violated. Well, actually, no, I got a new charge for meth, and was given a 3-year sentence, and did, I think, 15 months through a treatment program in Montana, got out, rejoined the union for about 4 months, and then violated my parole again for using again, for getting high on meth. I went on the run out of the state of Idaho out of the state of Montana to Idaho. In my mind, I was running from the feds and the cops, but that's just how drugs spin you out, you know. Like I was really had nothing to worry about. If I would have went and talked to my parole officer, everything probably would have been fine. But in my mind, I was running from myself, really. And I came through Idaho on my way to California, and I got an aggravated assault, and this is in 2015. Got an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, commission of a gun, a 5-year gun enhancement, and I was sentenced to 8 years in prison. And out here in Idaho, you can do suspended time, so you'll do like a little bit of your time in prison, and then the rest of it on parole. While I was in county jail, though, I was the day that I pulled the gun out on the officer and the security guard, I was high on bath salts. I just injected bath salts. I never shot up before, and it twisted my noodle. Something fierce. Like I lost all concepts of reality, and that's probably why I pulled the gun out. I didn't know.
Yeah, so you were on bath salts when
it was
when you offended, or when you caught that charge?
Yeah, when I got the new aggravated assault. So in 2015, I went to Ada County Jail and was committed to the hospital, Blackfoot State Hospital in Bingham County. And I had a walk away from there. Was gone 7 days out of so there was a nationwide manhunt for me because it was a felony escape from Ada County Jail.
And what year was this?
2015. Yeah, it was December 2015. Okay. And then I realized what I'd done, so I turned myself in. Went back to jail, spent a year in max in Ada County Jail, and while I was being sentenced for the aggravated assault. Finally got sentenced, went to prison for 3 years, 2018. And while I was in there, I had a change of, like, I was growing up. I realized that this is not the life I wanted anymore. I needed to change everything about my past. That was when I was like, okay, something has to give up. I think I was 35 at that time. And so I started talking to other inmates, people. I tried to surround myself around inmates that, even though they were inmates, I knew they were doing different type of stuff in their lives. And I met this one guy, Kai, which was like my mentor in there. He got me to work out. We fed off each other's energy. I started reading Think and Grow Rich. I've read just a slew of books, Donald Trump books, Robert Kiyosaki books, anything I could do to better myself, I read. Self-help books. The one that sticks out to me most was Anthony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. And when I read that book, I realized that I have the problem, and it's me that, like, I can do anything I want to if I put my mind to. And so I got out in 2018 and did really good. I got a job at a car lot. I changed my Facebook. I changed phone numbers, obviously. Didn't talk to anyone from the past, and did exceptionally well. I was very proud of myself. My family was proud of me. My friends, everyone's like, wow, maybe you got it this time. And then my father passed away in 2021, and I relapsed. And it hit
sorry
me.
for your loss.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. It hit me hard. I still get emotional about it. Of course, it was only a couple years ago, but it hit me hard. I relapsed, and during that relapse, I got into a slew of negative people, horrible people to hang around, horrible things, doing horrible things. Again, just my house went from a nice 3-bedroom house into like basically a trap house where everyone was coming over to flop and get high. And then I reoffended. Obviously, my parole officer caught wind of it, and she violated me. So I went back for a year, and was the worst year I've ever done incarcerated. I was so hard on myself because I had the passion to quit and put this stuff behind me, but I just obviously couldn't do it, And so I took a lot of time. And while I was in prison, I have a cousin that's really into cryptocurrency, and he sent me the Wall Street Journal and the Barron's crypto magazine, and I just educated myself. I just educated myself, and I said, there's got to be a different light at the end of the tunnel. I can find this, I can do this. And I would just, positive affirmations. And I got out in February and just dedicated myself. I found a job first, obviously, and then learned everything I could about cryptocurrency. And it's funny because like I think I was talking to you about that night. I watched this Richard Hart interview about I think Linked Up, where he had an interview, and I said, okay, this guy is the one I want to follow. Like, this is the one I'm gonna invest my time in. And yeah, bro, it just blew my mind. And then I watched you and K4K were my two first streamers that I'd watch and get educated from. And this is back in March of 2021.
Yeah, it's about 6 months ago, huh?
Yeah, man. So I just steadily focused on what you guys had to learn. Then I started watching other ones like Crypto 7, Crypto Coffee, and that's when I got involved with KSB.TV and just like asked them for some pointers, and they were super helpful, amazing people, And
yeah, Abit has shared his story of recovery from alcoholism and other drugs.
Yeah, it's insane, man. And yeah, so that's where I'm, and now here I am,
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's quite a journey with a lot of ups and downs, and a lot more downs than ups. Can you help me understand? So in your success in 2018, and then your dad died in 2021, was that another period where you had sobriety for?
Yeah.
And for how long?
Yeah. So I was sober for about 2 years, 2018, 2019, and 20. So no, my father, excuse me, my father passed away in 2020. It was September 10th, 2020. And so I had, 18, I got out on October 18th, 2018. So it was a couple months there, 18, and then into almost the end of 2020. So it was about 2 years of sobriety. And it was the people I chose to hang around. Getting into the car world, I had an extremely hard time finding a job with aggravated assault on an officer. That has been the hugest setback that I've ever come across in my life. And
Totally. Sometimes the criminal charges stick with you longer than the addiction does.
yes,
Unfortunately, but that's something that, you know, can only be overcome by, you know, building your personal relationships and you know, proving to people that, you know, that you know, that you're in a better place.
yeah.
So you had so did you have 2 periods in your life where you were sober for about 2 years?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And you know, when I look back, and they're the best years of my life, man. Really, they were. You know, I was productive. I was doing things. My family loved me. I mean, my family will always love me, but they get tired of the crap. You know, they're like, that's just Dustin. Oh, and that's my name. And it's so discouraging, you know, to have your family members just say, okay, well, this is just a pattern. This is what he's doing. So, I mean, that's my goal, is to, you know, break free from the chains of addiction. And the, you know, my title, my jacket is, you know, drug addict, not very good person type thing, you know.
Well, I wouldn't say that. If we go back to how you started, the starting point for your story was that you didn't have a good upbringing, but a lot of people
Right.
don't.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so one nugget of wisdom that I try to point out to people, of course, is that when you compare yourself to other people, that's in some ways out of touch with reality, because you haven't gone through all the advantages and disadvantages that they had in their life.
Right.
However, when you compare yourself to yourself a week ago, now that's the truest comparison you can make, and the one that focuses your attention on things that are more comparable. And it's one way to focus yourself on your own progress and journey, while still incorporating the things that you've learned over the years of what worked and what didn't work in your recovery. And when we think about, like, you know, is it your fault? You know, it's like, that's a complicated question, because when people spend too much time blaming themselves, that's actually an addictive behavior. But when people don't take responsibility for their addiction and for their behaviors, then that's no good either. And so there are certain ways of looking at the world to be able to just kind of ignore that question and to say, you know, you've always been doing your best with what you had.
Right.
And you didn't have the skills that you needed in order to succeed. And so it keeps the responsibility and the focus on now. You can accept the past instead of trying to fight it, but without saying that you have to accept the same future that you had in the past, if that makes any sense. And
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So when you you know, kind of ignore the trap of like constantly blaming yourself, and when you say, you know, I still have the responsibility to get the skills that I need, and to, you know, figure out what worked in the past and what's working now, then it, you know, as they say, it works if you work it.
Yeah, right. That's it, man. That's it.
So your work situation is one thing that can cause you to relapse or cause you to do better.
Yes.
And you're, you know, having a tragic loss of a family member is something that can derail your sobriety as well. And so just for kind of the people at home and for you as well, I think, you know, the number one thing that I would start trying to teach people who were in my recovery program is like, you know, what are the top 2 recovery skills? Well, the top 2 recovery skills are staying busy with healthy activities and avoiding triggers. And then all of the other skills that I would teach people would kind of build upon that foundation. But to just not get overwhelmed at the beginning, and this actually applies to lots of behavior change, whether somebody wants to like stop wasting money, stop gambling, stop smoking, like stop playing video games, stop doing compulsive behaviors. Like there's lots of things that are in a lot of ways similar to addiction. They're not the same thing, but there are a lot of behaviors that people want to change. And the best way for people to change their behaviors is, you know, to control their behavioral environment. And so your people, places, and things can either be triggers in your recovery or they can be anchors.
Right.
And do you have any examples of people, places, or things that are healthy for you now?
Oh yeah, man. Like healthy activities are mandatory.
What do you do to stay busy?
Right now, bike rides are huge for me. Getting out in nature and just appreciating nature. Being incarcerated has kind of given me a different aspect of like life, you know. I've had 12 years basically taken on my own doings, taken away, you know. So I go down to the Greenbelt here in Boise. I'm mandatory every Saturday and go for a ride on my bike. And
awesome.
While I'm down there, you know, I talk to people and I'm super friendly. Just say, hey, how you doing? You know, I try to get interaction and I just talk to people. There's a plethora of college kids down there that are super into crypto, so I generally have something to talk about with them.
Cool.
And I try, you know, spread awareness with Richard Hart. You know, I got a stack of cards that I take with me everywhere that I hand out. And it's a great topic, and it helps me have an outlook on future. Like I know if I continue the dollar cost averaging into Hex, and being aware of what's going on around me with the cryptocurrency, that's my healthy activity. Like I thoroughly enjoy it. I love it. It gives me hope for the future. And yeah. And that's one thing. The other thing is I live in a halfway house full of, and there's 9 other guys in here. So there's all different kinds of opinions throughout the day. But Saturday or Sundays, I usually cook breakfast for everyone, you know, out of my pocket. I'll like cook whatever, pancakes, eggs, you know, like that for everyone, just to try to be a positive outlook, you know, for people. You never know what someone's going through in their mind. They could be having a bad day, whether it's a parole officer or a girlfriend or something like that. So I just really try to bring light to the housing situation. I am a manager here as well, and my property management company that runs and owns a halfway house, you know, they like what I do. It's a very positive environment to come into, even though there's relapses every once in a while. Like I had a horrible setback last week that totally discouraged me. And I went public about it. You know, I asked for help. I went on the Twitter, on TikTok, everything that I never done before. And that was probably one of the most enlightening things I've ever done in my life, man. Honestly, it was just being aware and admitting to, because normally I would have just lied about it. No, I'm not using, you know. And I think that's that paradigm in my mind now. That's where like, look, it's okay to ask for help. Like, yeah, I'm almost 40 years old, but I need help. Like, you know, like people need help, man. And it's okay. And that's why I encourage everyone to ask for help, you know. Don't get discouraged and fall into that addiction, and it's crazy. So that's pretty much what I do for healthy activities, man.
We all need help, and it's not always easy to ask for it when you've been in survival mode, or when
Right.
it's hard to tell the difference between somebody helping you and somebody leading you down the wrong path. But when you start to have the right experiences, then you know what to look for. And it sounds
Yeah.
like you're making great strides in that department. Do you mind if I suggest one activity that people seem to find helpful? And I'll tell you why I think it's helpful as well. So this is something called daily hourly scheduling, and it's not so much an exercise in like recording what you already did, but it's an exercise in planning what you will do. And so normally I recommend to people, even if you just do one day at a time at first,
Right.
and then maybe you have a bunch of blanks for the rest of the week, and when you have certain appointments and stuff, you can fill it in ahead of time. But the goal is actually to not fill out the entire week all at once, because you want to be able to learn from how each day is going. And then one of the 15 or 30-minute time slots is making your plan for the next day. But the difference between having a plan in your mind and writing it down is that you're developing the part of your brain that holds you accountable for planning for the future. And without doing that, it's actually really easy to start to drift when you're not anticipating, oh, look, I've got downtime coming up, I need to fix that. Or I'm going way too hard on certain things that are going to leave me burnt out on them. Like, for example, if you got way over involved in biking and you were going all day, every day for a ride, then that would tell you that you need more balance, or else, you might injure your body, and then you can't do that anymore. And now what are you supposed to do? You're not balanced enough. And so, but creating a daily hourly schedule, it doesn't sound as appealing as it actually is once you start to create that structure for yourself, because structure is one of the ingredients that probably is one of the most important, moderate to advanced skills. But it still relates to these first two things of staying busy with healthy activities and avoiding triggers. Because when you create your daily hourly schedule, you're going to be paying attention to those things. And if you give it a try, you might find that it ends up bringing you more freedom instead of less.
Right.
Oddly enough.
Yeah, and that's so spot on, man. That is so spot on. I sit here a lot of the time spinning my wheels about what I'm gonna do, because I have free time to do things, and I end up doing nothing, because I see, I've kind of talked to you about my ADD, ADHD, that I am so all over the place. But when I lock into something, it's like when I get something, I lock into it, right? Like we were talking about, and I have got to do that. I have got to do time management, and I have to do that, because I think it'll be very productive for me.
Yeah, it can again help to structure your time, and then that develops the planning part of your brain that will hold you accountable and allow you to predict the future more and more accurately, so that you can do the avoiding triggers part and do the healthy activities part that's going to build you the pieces that you want. So so that's kind of like, those are some early recovery skills that I recommend to people. And of course, you can see how it branches out, because it's like, well, what are some things, what's a good balance of things to put on your daily hourly schedule? Well, eventually having work activities, having pleasurable activities such as hobbies and interests and self-care. And then, it can be, including exercise, like you are, social activities, all that kind of stuff. Really, branches out from the planning that you do and the way you can look at it. So
yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you shared it because it's something that I've always thought about. I've just never done it. You know, I spin out and go on to something different. And then I'm happy for a little bit. And then I'm like, oh, what am I doing? And then I do too much of something. And then I don't do enough of something. And then I just end up back at square one with nothing done, man. It's crazy.
So this is a good skill for adult ADHD as well as recovery, of course. And I mean, even people who aren't in either of those situations, I mean, this can help with depression. I mean, it can help somebody who's not having a deficit in their mood or attention, or if struggling with addiction, like, which is why it's such a cool skill to talk about is, planning. So,
it is.
Do you have, so what kind of like therapy or support activities are you involved in?
So after Friday, my step back, I went and talked to Peer Wellness. It's a recovery group up here, and it's nonprofit. So I checked myself into there. I talked to my case manager, Christy, about my struggles, what I had going on, my fears of going back to prison, and she set up EMR or EMT therapy. And I'm not quite sure what it is. It has something to do with flashing lights and bringing up cognitive remembrance of like childhood type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never done it, so I'm interested in doing it. I have years of addiction therapy, cognitive principles and reconstructing, stinking thinking, high risk factors, boot camp, beaten into my head. So I understand and have the tools of what you would think one would need to stay sober, but I never implement them, right? So I'm doing something totally different, something I've never done before. And I do that. And then on Tuesday nights, I go to AA group just for the therapy session about it, because I never thought, even though it's a group of guys and girls that, and when I was younger, it was, it just sounds like, people are just war storying, and it wasn't what I was into. Well, now that I'm older, I see it in a different light that, hey, it's therapy, just like this right here, me and you talking, it's just therapy. It's, getting stuff off your chest. One thing I have learned is that if you bury your feelings and don't talk about it, you're a ticking time bomb. You're literally a ticking time bomb.
Yeah. And if you're not moving forward, standing still is the same as moving backwards. So, the type of therapy that you mentioned, somebody already guessed it in the chat, is, or they knew it, EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a really cool kind of therapy, because what it does is it distracts your nervous system while you're processing something, so that you can process that without getting overwhelmed by it. And for a lot of people, that creates a really interesting experience that like they don't get from just talking about trauma. It's it's like really cool because it combines therapy and neuroscience in a way where, it's not exactly like hypnosis. I mean, it's not, because hypnosis has a level of like suggestibility in it, and it's like kind of a trance state. In this case, it's literally just like, you could be swinging a watch in front of somebody's face, or, using lights and sounds and stuff. But whatever it is that you're doing to engage the person's lateral eye movement, it turns out that the body is wired in a way where if you're scanning the environment, you don't have the same fight or flight response that you have when you're, focused on a threat. And so that's why there becomes this separation between your physical trauma and your mental trauma, and then you can keep the physical under control while you're processing the mental to deal with it separately. And that form of breaking it down, I mean, it's like it's really helpful for some people. And
Yeah.
and if that's not, you know, the thing that helps people, then you keep trying other things until you find what works. But that's a really cool therapy, and hopefully it helps to know, like, why it works.
Yeah, I look forward to it, man, for sure. And like I said, I try to document as much of my life as I can now. So it'll be interesting. Iron Hex, yeah, that's really good friend of mine. How this goes, man. And I'm super excited about life. I had a great talk with my parole officer today about the therapy. She was really proud of me. And I've never done this in my life, man. I've never ever asked for help. I've always been that guy to say, I got this, I can do this on my own. And it's crazy the help and how supportive everyone is on social media, man. I encourage everyone, if you're struggling with any kind of anything, just to talk to people about it. It has helped me so much, Maddie, so much.
That's great to hear. Yeah, the support that you have in this community and others, it's you know, it warms people's hearts, and that's what people are saying in the chat right now. So that's really incredible that you're taking steps to be honest with yourself and others. That wasn't how you always thought about recovery, and you had the right people and places that you needed to feel safe about telling the truth and accepting the responsibility, and being, I mean, at some level you have to be a little bit hopeful that telling the truth could work out, and you don't have any certainty. That's when it's like the hardest to do the right thing. And you did the right thing, right? So that should not be overlooked. And you know, knowing what, again, breaking down, like, what were your triggers and how can you avoid them next time. You and I had an interesting conversation actually right before your relapse. Maybe a week before, where I cautioned you to learn about this, like, this idea of be smart, not strong.
Yes,
and
I
the wisdom
specifically
there.
remember that.
So the wisdom there is like, well, of course you want to be strong, because in any given moment, that's what you need to avoid relapse. However, the way to look at moving forward is that you should be avoiding all situations where you know you're going to need strength, and save your strength for the unexpected triggers. And instead of, like, trying to prove to yourself that you can withstand you know, the expected triggers, because there can, you know, you're just giving yourself time to have something unexpected compound and then become too much. And so the example that I give, which is not necessarily for your case, but just to make it clear, is like, you know, if somebody is an alcoholic and the closest place to buy tobacco cigarettes is a liquor store, then that person should, no matter how strong they're feeling that day, should go to the farther place that doesn't sell alcohol and only sells tobacco, if they're not ready to quit tobacco. And it's like, you know, that type of harm reduction and avoiding triggers, like, each little thing like that can on some days be a big thing, whether you're in the habit of avoiding triggers or not, really makes a difference. And so, you know, when people do an inventory of their own triggers and think of people, places, so, like, you know, giving examples and actually writing out on a list, like, who are the people I always use around? Who are the people I often use around? Who are the people I sometimes use around? Who are the people I never use around? And those never people become the anchors. And then You do the same with places. You make a list and you say, where are the places I always used, often used, sometimes,
Right.
never. And then, what are the emotions that always, often, sometimes, never. And when you break it down and then you start to connect to the things and you say, well, around this person where I sometimes use, and this place where I sometimes use, and this mood that I sometimes use, when you start to combine those, the likelihood of relapse increases with each additional trigger. And so when you learn to replace the people, places, and things, and you look at the interaction of how the triggers interact with each other, then you're able to clearly, mark out the path of like, well, the often and always things need to get cut and replaced with other ways to meet your needs. But and then the sometimes category is like, that needs to be used in moderation. And then the never, that's where you need to increase your SAC. And
Right.
and so literally breaking it down that way is I think also helpful in creating your roadmap for recovery.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, man. That's why I like talking to you so much, man. It's like, there's so much, there's so much to it. And it with the famous words is keep it simple, stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is really
Yes.
easy if you just do it. You just have to do it, and that's the biggest challenge. And that's why I talk about it now, is because it helps me do that. And yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. So we talked about really kind of like 3 activities here. And one of them you're already doing, which is staying busy with healthy activities. And then avoiding triggers is like doing a trigger inventory. And then, well, along with the first thing is kind of daily, hourly scheduling. So that I think usually is a good point of review for people, no matter how much recovery experience they have. And, it's like, when you have the right foundation and you don't get overwhelmed, that's when you can build the best foundation for your recovery.
Right. Right.
So I'm glad that I'm glad that we're having this talk, and I'm glad
Me
that
too,
it's
man.
making sense. So yeah, and the other thing that's really cool is you're developing a hobby that kind of matches you up with people who are doing some long-term thinking. And
Right.
There's never been a cryptocurrency before Hex where you could time lock your money and you could send it to your future self, as I always put it.
So cool,
And
man. It is so
yeah,
cool.
it's people can time lock for up to 15 years. And what's recommended is that you maybe have some coming out every year so that you don't have to wait the whole time, and you can spread out your savings over time in a way that, if Hex continues to follow in the footsteps of Bitcoin, which we have no guarantee of that, but we're like 2 years in and it's like following the chart very closely. Well, that could make somebody financially free.
Right.
If they're not risking it all, if they're not trading, if they're not investing more than they're willing to lose, all of these things that Richard Hart talks about are the responsibilities of people in crypto, to anticipate that there will be 90% drops, and anticipate there will be 10x or 100x returns at other times for some people. That both of those situations can cause people to miss out if they don't spread out their wealth over time and really play a long-term game instead of a short-term game. And delaying gratification, which is a long-term play skill or like a long-term strategy. It's, that's what Hex has in common with recovery and behavior change and making the world a better place. It's like giving people a tool to pay their future self. And then I believe that when people use money in a way where they're paying their future selves instead of borrowing from their future selves by always living on credit forever and always running in the rat race that they can never get ahead on, like I believe Hex or anything that allows people to time lock successfully, that can actually change people's behavior across society in almost a subconscious way. That it's like our monetary environment is so unhealthy that it bleeds out into us being more likely to give up on long-term plans and make short-term plans of immediate gratification and, relapsing to substances and doing tons of unhealthy behaviors, having unhealthy relationships. It's like all of those things increase the more desperate you make people financially. And so Hex being able to make people more comfortable financially, even as a possibility, even as you're investing in this, knowing the risks, knowing that it's a miracle any of this stuff works in technology, but that, that people can have life-changing wealth. But if we go beyond that, it's like, even if you become a millionaire, if you're still not farther along with addiction or with unhealthy relationships or with self-improvement, then that could kill you. Right. So that's one thing that I've touched on over the 2 years that I've been streaming, and something where, as I continue to grow my audience, I'll keep coming back to this idea of like, how can we program mental health into money with crypto, and how can we program our behaviors to change, not just with saving and paying our future selves with money, but also paying our future selves with like changing our behaviors and improving ourselves for the better, becoming the best versions of ourselves that we can. And when I was a therapist, it was like the first 3 years that I was practicing, I was like learning a lot. And then one of the best things I ever learned was practice what you preach. And that's when I had the biggest breakthroughs in my life. And then the biggest breakthroughs with my clients' lives was when I started exercising, I started sleeping right, I started learning healthy relationship skills and practicing them, and working on having a better relationship with myself, and, not having expectations of others that aren't, realistic and stuff. And so that believing in myself and like, focusing my energy on things that, are take me into like a positive cycle instead of a downward negative cycle. Yes. And so, but to like, to bring that story kind of all the way around, the turning point for me in practicing what I preached was that I almost like accidentally started taking omega-369, which is, it's also known as fish oil. And it's something where, like I was working with an ADHD client who like kept relapsing. Like I would see this person like they were one of my first clients, and then, I'd see them a year later, and then a year after that. And like, they just kept going back through the same cycle. And so at one point I was like, just scrolling through, like, what else haven't I tried? Like, what can I do here that's different? And so I thought of this thing I had learned in neuroscience where omega-3 is the material that your brain needs in order to insulate the electrical wires. And so, of course, in your prefrontal cortex, that's really important because that's where you do all your recovery behaviors. And
Okay.
the rest of your, like the other parts of your brain, the midbrain, is where you do all your addictive planning and stuff. And so
Right.
I realized that all of the behaviors I was trying to teach people were all frontal brain behaviors, like making new friends, thinking more highly of yourself, like discipline, planning, organization, like healthy relationships, all these things that are recovery skills. They all involved the prefrontal cortex, this part of the brain. And so this is an area where lots of people don't have the right material that their body needs to insulate those electrical wires. And so, back when cavemen and cavewomen used to be around, they got plenty of omega-3 because it worked its way up the food chain, because they would eat like, more organic stuff and more, like animals wouldn't get genetically modified stuff. It would be all natural stuff. And so, but nowadays you can get omega-3 for like $5 a month from like Walmart or like any grocery store or pharmacy. And what I discovered was that by me taking this and then recommending it to clients is what they should already have in their diet. And it's like, it's not even like a medicine. It's just like, as long as you're not on blood pressure medicine, then this is just, it's just what people can learn that their bodies need as a part of their normal diet. But it's like, for me, I noticed within about 3 or 4 weeks that I was thinking more clearly and that I had more control over my own behaviors. And it was like, it was like a light bulb going off. And so I used that experience to teach the clients for years after that, that this was something, like maybe they could give it a try, because it's like, it's so inspiring and like, so practical. And it turned out that like, not only just the physical science of it, but there's also like a mental component of like, when you start therapy, if you go to a group and like, there's a bunch of hardcore people there who are all like, this worked for me. And then it's like not hard to get a $5 bottle of something, but you have to commit. Like that is a commitment. It is something where you're like, you have to make a decision. Like, are you going to give this a try or are you going to ignore it? And the people who ignored it, some of them stayed in therapy so long that after 6 months or after a year, they were finally ready to try it, because they were sick of seeing all the people coming in and finishing before them. Yeah. And so it's like they proved it one way or another that omega-3 was helpful. And so I would recommend to anybody who, doesn't have high blood pressure medicine that this is like a huge life hack. And there are probably people who are watching now who started taking omega-3 even a couple of years ago when I was talking about it. And I hope that's something that you might consider if you're not already doing it.
Yeah. My grandma talked to me about, I was on fish oil for about 6 months. And of course, I was so into my addiction, doing that and the same thing, it didn't obviously affect me. But I am a huge believer in homeopathic medicines, and my fiance suffered from underactive thyroid, and so we got a naturopath here in Boise, Dr. Abraham, and we went vegan, and she went gluten, dairy, and soy free, and got on omega-3s, but it was through flaxseed. We got her through the flaxseed, and it reversed the effects of her thyroid. and she came off of her thyroid medication, which was
Wow.
phenomenal. So be able to see that firsthand, I know for sure. And I'm glad you brought that back up to my attention, because I'm going to go out and get a bottle. I'm going to get some fish oil. Like, I know it. I know.
That's awesome. Yeah. What I did myself is I started off with 1,000 milligrams of omega-3 once a day with food for the first week. And then I went to 2,000 milligrams. And then if I was like eating tuna every other day or something, then I would factor that in so you don't overdo it on the omega-3. But yeah, that's that was my starting point that it makes sense, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely going to take that to the bank. And yeah, cause yeah, man, I want to be the best me ever, dude. You know what I'm saying? And just that's it, dude. One step, one day at a time. I talk to Giving Alpha on a daily basis. He says the same thing. It's like, just one day at a time, man. You got this. And positive affirmations and positive reinforcements.
Mm-hmm.
Speak it into existence. It happens.
Oh yeah, yeah,
it does, man.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, this has been a really cool talk, because I can tell that you really do want to make changes in your life, and,
yeah, man.
And you're at that point where it sounds like you're ready to start practicing the things that worked before, plus the things that you didn't try before, like the
right.
like
yeah.
And that that all is that's that's great. I mean, that's that's something you can be proud of, and that you can keep an eye on all at the same time.
That's it, man. That's it. Yeah, it's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful journey, and it's going to continue being a wonderful journey, man. I just have to stay focused and positive, and watch out for them triggers, like you said, man. And ever since I talked to you, and I've known about triggers, I've known about seemingly unimportant decisions, but I thought I had it, I didn't say, I got it. I'm a grown ass man. I gotta have it, and I didn't have it, man, and yeah, it's cool, man. All this is cool.
Yeah. There's no shame in admitting that you don't have the skills yet.
Yeah.
Because you weren't taught them.
Right.
And so that doesn't leave you off the hook. It's time to get the skills.
Yeah.
And that comes from your experience that you're willing to go out there and get and do your best.
That's it, man.
That's a key ingredient. So kudos to having the right vision, having the right goals.
Thank you, Maddie. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Well, I'm proud of you for sharing your story. I think there's people that you might not ever even hear from that will tune in, and they'll find it helpful. And you and I might be able to arrange a way for me to send you maybe 100 Hex to the Future magnets.
Right.
So
yeah, man.
So when you meet people, you can give them that, and then have them go find your your video on my YouTube page, or
right.
Have them learn about Hex or whatever you want to direct them to. But
that's it, man.
I could ship those out to you, no problem.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I'm all about it. I hand out the Hex cards that I got from pumppulse.io from Abe at Hex. And I keep them in my back pocket. What's one thing Richard Hart has taught me is patience. Patience. I started buying in at 18 cents, and I was able to put a little bit more money in at 3 cents. And so nice. I've learned patience. This bridge with ETH Proof of Works and ETH Fair were mind blowing to me. It's yeah, man, all the free coins, I didn't know what to do,
Yeah. Have you have you got any of your hex time locked?
No, nope. I had a stake. I staked for just to get familiar with it and stuff like that. And there's some things I need to learn and understand 100%. Like the famous was telling me on Twitter the other night, and I took that into consideration. So yeah, so I started just learning a little bit more about it. But I definitely going to be time locking some hex, man.
Cool.
Like it is
Yeah,
in the cards.
I've got a new blog page called HexW.info.
Okay.
And there you
Yeah, I
can
think I
find,
seen that last night on your stream.
Yeah. There were, I couldn't believe this. There were 1,000 people who went to that blog in the first day I put it up.
Wow,
And
dude.
that was only with about 3,000 people even seeing like the video that I made. And of course, like, you know, it's so the point is that it seems like information that people are really interested in.
Yeah.
And the next stream that I do here in about 15 minutes is going to be about helping people make sense of why some people are speaking ill of it and some people are, you know, really getting behind it. But
Yeah.
But what you can do when you feel like it is you can use the instructions there on hexw.info to enter the new network settings for HexW, and then you have a copy of your coins over there where the transaction fees are 1,000 times lower, literally
So cheap,
1,000 times lower. It's like a fraction of a penny. And you can take your free coins and you can time lock them using my front end that works extremely well on mobile and desktop. And it's compatible with the ETHW network. We're hoping to add compatibility for ETH Fair as well. But right now it works on ETH POW. And from there, you can take your hex that's not worth a whole lot right now. I mean, it's about 15% of a penny. And you can time lock it, you know, sending it out every year if you want. You could break it down into 15 years for almost, you know, no cost of your Ethereum or anything. And yeah, so it's a really cool website. It's been working almost all of the time for 15 months. And even if you use it, all of your stakes are still compatible with go.hex.com.
Yes.
On the Ethereum network.
So cool. It's so cool.
So it's like go.hex.com doesn't support the ETHW network yet, but because Hex is decentralized, my front end works. The Hedron front end works for Hex staking, and but the one that I made is super compatible with mobile and desktop. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check into it. I know I've heard a lot of stories about people putting liquidity pools, you know, using that cash in the ETH hex out. I'm not touching it, man. I'm waiting for parity. You know, like you said, I'm time locking. I'm patient. I've learned patience, and I know I'll be all right if I just hold, stake and hold.
Even if you time lock one hex that's worth a fraction of a penny for 15 years, it's the experience that I can't teach you unless you do it. It's like the whole, you know, and it's funny because there were like really famous people like BitBoy and Adam Stokes who like either got Hex from Richard as like a one-time thing, and it wasn't to like say anything nice about Hex, and they certainly didn't say anything nice about Hex.
No, they didn't.
But like, but they didn't even, they met with Richard. They did live streams for like long periods of time, and they didn't even try time locking. And this was back when Hex was like, had so many zeros in front of it. It was like hard to tell how cheap, you know, like it was like less, like one Hex was 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. So you could get 100 million Hex for one Bitcoin back on day 33. So
That's so
Anyway,
cool, man.
the point is that Hex can melt people's faces and can go down a lot too. But the time locking is something you have to see to believe yourself. So even if you stake some like super small amount for that period, even if it's your free coins, then that's a good goal to get the other side of the experience that we're talking about. So yeah.
Knowledge is power, dude, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm on Twitter all the time, and it's just because there's so much amazingness out there, man.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a great interview, and I'm so glad that I'm grateful to you that you were able to share your story with me and with everybody watching.
It was a little hard at first, and I was, it's I think it's important for me, and being a selfish act myself to get me better is by talking about it, man. Mm-hmm. And I never know who I might touch that I don't even know that might take some advice or words of wisdom I have in my life, and and I think it's really cool, man. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
My pleasure. And so I want to call on everybody out there to go ahead and subscribe to Jimmy DeHex on both of his channels that I've got linked here in the pinned tweet, the pinned comment on YouTube in the YouTube chat, and also at the very beginning of the description below, you can find a link to his YouTube channel, which really needs some love. And you've got like 3 or 4 subscribers there, but you've got multiple videos, so people need to check you out there. And then on Twitter, I want people to follow you there as well, where you've got a super healthy following of, I think, over 700 people. And so those are both awesome places. And why don't we have everybody who's watching, show some love and prove what you really think about Hex Therapy by supporting somebody who came on and told their story. That'd be great.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And the handle for people to find you on Twitter, if they're, well, everybody's going to click on the link right now, but if for the people just listening through audio, what's your Twitter handle?
It's at Paradigm1366, PARADIGM 1366, Jimmy the Hex, and it's pretty much everything across all boards, Jimmy the Hex.
Awesome. Well, man. I would encourage you to keep up the good work when it comes to recovery. Practice daily, hourly scheduling, and
that's going
avoiding triggers.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping maybe we can have you back on, in a month or so, and
man,
hear how it's going.
I've gone. Yeah, that's it, man. That's what it's all about. The story, and seeing from where I was to where I'm going is awesome, man. I look forward to it.
Well, yeah, thanks for coming on. And for now, we're going to go ahead and sign off and play the outro here. And then people will be able to catch you on your channel.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you. And I'm working on it. I've got a lot to do with stuff, man. It's all very new to me.
Good deal. And for everybody who wants to stick around, in about 5 minutes, I'm going to go live to talk about what's been going on with the forks of Hex. So
awesome.
Stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Yes, that's it. Thank you, Maddie.
Yeah.
What we're hoping and what we're thinking is that when the monetary environment changes from a fiat system where people are incentivized to spend as quickly as possible before prices go up, or else you'll be able to get less in the future for the same amount of effort that you put into your paycheck. Hex is a new system that rewards people for saving instead of punishing people for saving. And so that's one thing that I think can fundamentally change the behavior of humans is by changing their financial environment and allowing people to experience what's possible when they have a stake in their own future, and when people can work together in order to make the future more abundant for all.